expression in Nigeria as a result of the Cybercrime Act.
Absolutely, and to coerce those who hold opposing views, as was also mentioned earlier on, can the act be superior to the provision of the Constitution, which guarantees freedom of expression? That has always been the matter. I mean, this was also raised when there was the social media bill that was to curb,
Yes,
online conversations and rhetorics. But it's good that we're going to be doing that this morning, and we have our guest here in the studio. Why questions we'll be asking perhaps is, why is it that activists and human rights lawyers have not found it necessary to challenge the act in court? Will the act not hinder the work of the media, some say, as the fourth rail?
Yes, these are the questions we'll be putting to Abdulaminu Mahmoud. Abdul was a delegate to the 2014 National Conference and former president of the National Association of Nigerian Students, NANS. Many thanks for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me. Happy New Year. Nice to
Same to you.
Happy New Year. We'll take it.
Right.
I was going to say Happy Valentine's Day. We'll take Happy New Year.
And Happy Valentine's Day to Nigerians.
Okay.
All right, so let's get straight into the meat of the matter. I mean, this question, it's really a critical question, especially at a time when Nigerians are looking at freedom of expression. There has been a lot of gagging down, Activists also, some of them are cooling off in corners, not wanting to speak out because they do not know if there'll be freedom after speech amongst that. But in terms of the, Cybercrime Act, what precisely are your concerns?
Well, I raised my concerns in 2014 when the bill came for public hearing at the House of Representatives. Unfortunately, many Nigerians did not take the bill seriously at the time. I warned of the dangers of Section 16, 17, 19, 21, and 24, more particularly 24, that talks about sending of messages through electronic computers and canvassing falsehoods, sending pornographic materials. Some of the issues or offenses, so to speak, raised by Section 24 are offenses dealt by extant laws that like the Criminal Code and the Penal Code. And I did warn that what the National Assembly was trying to do was weaponize using legislative instruments, to tyrannize, the freedoms and rights of Nigerians. Unfortunately, some of us were lone voices in the wilderness at the time. The bill was passed. It was assented by the then president, and we've seen avalanche of arrests, of detentions, of matters that naturally should devolve in the civil realm of the law, criminalized by the police. I do not entirely blame the act. I blame the act. Like I told Shola when I was coming here, there are two things we have to deal with in respect of freedom of speech in Nigeria and of rights. Rights are not absolute. If you look at those rights in Section 30 up to 44 of the Chapter 4 of the 1999 Constitution. So in exercising our rights, we should also be responsible. That's one. And two, personages of power should also understand the nature of power. Power is disciplinary. Power is punishing. Because you are an Inspector General of Police, does not give you, the right, to go about tyrannizing Nigerians who ask questions about the circumstances in which your stay in office, was extended. Because power is disciplinary. It is expected that the person who holds and wields power should also be disciplined. And that is what we have not found. Like you said, is the Cybercrime Prohibition Act in conflict, with the Constitution of Nigeria? Well, the Court of Appeal has ruled since 2018 in Okedera against Attorney General of Federation that Section 39, which deals with freedom of speech and freedom of expression, and Section 36 of Section 12, which deals with right to fair hearing, are not in conflict with the 1999 Constitution. I think that's why activists like myself have been reticent, about approaching the court, because the law is fairly settled.
Okay, so what do activists of you make about the intention of those who actually framed the Act, the 2015 Act itself, and the 2024 amendment? Were there no good intentions as a result? In getting this Act framed, or you think it was basically a way to just stylishly curb freedom of expression?
Well, no government in post-colonial states, let's put it this way, would allow freedoms, and rights, to flourish.
Why do you say that?
Perhaps I overgeneralize the case here, but in our society, where those who wield power seize the opportunity of plumbing in depths and ensuring that votes do not count, will not allow your freedom of expression to flourish. Because freedom of expression is about settling the whole aspect of accountability. How do I hold those who wield power accountable? But because we have politicians, we have personages of power in our country who haven't been disciplined by power, they will not be interested in allowing your freedom to flourish. So it is in that context that I see the passage of the Cybercrime Prohibition Act in 2015. Like I keep insisting, some of these matters that police harangue citizens over are matters that can be dealt with the civil realm. I was telling Shola, 3 years ago, I had the opportunity of defending, a renowned Nigerian pastor, Apostle Suleiman Johnson, who was defamed and libeled by a Nigerian Nollywood actress. He had a choice of seeking protection under Section 24 by going to the police. Yeah. But I advised him that, Apostle, look, it will be your best interest, because by going to the police, you will trigger an aspect that deals with dynamics of power, unequal power. People will think that because you be big man, you want to use the police to harass and harangue a poor Nigerian actress. And we went to court, and we won. 2 years later, the young Nigerian actress, apologized publicly and said she lied. So when I see Nigerians running to the police, for example, well, it's fine and good. But it's also the responsibility of the police to investigate the substance of the claims made by the blogger. The police aren't doing that. So they work on the pretext that who first come police station, now they win case. And that isn't the truth. I've been a victim of Section 24.
Yes, I was going to come to Section 24 of the Amendment Act. It says of the Cybercrime Act criminalizes the sending of pornographic content, false, offensive, and aggravating information, and cyberbullying, including stalking and insulting public government officials online. So perhaps it's the whole government of the 200 million Nigerians that would be going to court on this, because one way or the other you have found people to show their distress, their discontent with what is happening in government. So where do you draw the line in that section? Because for some people it's a bit ambiguous.
That Section 24, it was in the basis of Section 24 that the Supreme Court, the Court of Appeal heard in Okedere and the Attorney General, that Section 24 is not in conflict with Section 39 and Section 36 of the Constitution. But further amendments have been made to Section 24, which, of course, in a way invalidates the decision of the Court of Appeal. Even the new amendment, does not address the vagueness of Section 24. If you look at it, the responsibility of a citizen, an active citizen, who exists, who is performative, in his duties as a citizen, is to draw personages of power to account. So what Section 24 does is to protect people in power. You exercise my mandate, for God's sake. It's also my responsibility to ask you, how are you exercising my mandate? It's also my responsibility to ask Mr. President, for example, you say our economy has gone south. Inflation is running at about 33.4%. Nigerians are facing all sort of taxes and all that, and you tell me that our economy has gone sour. But in the midst of all this, you bought yourself presidential Escalade, you bought yourself presidential jet, you've done all sorts of renovations. Wike spent 22 billion in renovating the official residence of the vice president. In a country whose economy is in comatose, and you tell me I cannot raise questions as a citizen? The only way or medium that you can use in raising such questions are the social media platforms. So what those who exercise power in a country are doing is to curtail our ability to draw them to account, to bring them to account.
Okay, but would you say that, because we've also seen a few cases where there have been abuses and extreme abuses as well. Don't you think that those are frightening enough for them to actually put some of these curbs?
Look, at the beginning of in my opening remarks here, I made a point that it's important for people who put out statements in the public space to be responsible. I do not in any way excuse those Nigerians who obviously tweet, Facebook, outright lies against individual.
I've seen some. I read last weekend. They said that Oprah Winfrey was dead or something like that the other day. I don't know if anybody else saw it.
Yeah, but it was
my wife was about to break into tears when she read it. I said, "Woman, cool down."
But the point is this: police must understand the nature or character of our state, the nature or character of of freedoms themselves, and exercise some sort of caution in the way they deal with cases. It is not all about hammer and nail.
Yeah.
It's not all about hammer and nail. It's about understanding the freedoms of individuals and the responses the police will have to outline in addressing some of these problems you have outlined. One method or one response, I think, is for the police to look at its internal procedure. Okay. Internal procedure. If I report a case against AIT, for example, is it proper for the police to storm AIT, begin to arrest everybody simply because I've made a complaint of falsehood against the AIT? One simple way is for the police to look at your complaint, investigate if the complaint or the substance of the complaint, is true. It's true. Take the Dele Farotomi's case, for example. It's my good friend, comrade. We both functioned in student movement in the 90s. He made damning allegations against a senior lawyer in our country. He made damning allegations against the Supreme Court of Nigeria. In the midst of all this, nobody has asked questions about the Supreme Court. Nobody has looked at the substance of his
focus on the
allegation.
dramatization of the whole narrative.
And all that. What did the police do? Jumped in on the car in Ekiti, went across interstate boundaries, arrested the man and brought him to Ekiti for trial. Today, the case has ended. The matter has been swept into the court. The substance of his allegation. There has been increasing allegations about the judicialization of corruption in our country. A senator, stood in the hallowed chambers of the Senate of our country, claimed that, when the wife used to write judgments, he used to whisper bedroom whispers, to the wife.
I don't know about bedroom whispers, but
it's enough for us to commission some inquiry. We look at cases that have been handled within that time frame in the Supreme Court or in the Court of Appeal and see if something. How do I put? I'm a lawyer. I don't want to put down.
Okay, so
yes.
my own profession.
Yes.
But there are problems. There are problems
that
in our country
that
need to be looked
Okay,
into.
so let's look at the cost of cybercrimes. In Nigeria, I know that. There has been different conversations on the level of billions of dollars. I think over $9.3 billion that it costs, Nigerians in terms of finding out what it really, the damage it has done, not on just on the finances of those involved, but on the nation as well. I mean, Section 44 was an issue that was raised, especially in terms of establishing a fund, which is known as the National Cyber Crime Security Fund. People were asking where would the money come from, you know, who would the money go to, and all of that. In terms of fighting cybercrime, I hear some of the challenges in between. I hear the ambiguity in some of the sections, but what can be the pros, and how do we amplify that, as well as looking at the challenges? I think that it may be fair to be able to draw the line.
Yeah, we can't just throw the baby with with the bathwater, as they say. There are positive aspects of of the Cybercrime Prohibition Act. For me, I think the responsibility of our Attorney General to look at the act itself, because it's become problematic in respect of the implementation of or enforcement, let me use that word, of certain provisions of the act. Bring stakeholders together. Look, those that have been hit mainly are bloggers, and look at ways in which bloggers can be made responsible, can be made self-regulatory, at one level. Two, talk to the high command of Nigerian police. It is the high personalities whose cases we hear and read in the papers that we know. There are people whose cases are not caught in the media attention, who are in police cells across the length and breadth of our country. See how the police can be made disciplined in a way that it understands its powers and the limits of powers under its act. The interesting thing about this is this: the police has a department that deals with cybercrime, and what I find intriguing about the department is that the man who sits at the top, at the food chain of the department, is caught in the whole forgery that is presently consuming the Nigerian police. So we're talking about the hypocrisy of the nation state and institutions, in itself. I do not believe in absolute flourish of freedoms and rights.
Yes.
In exercising our rights, we must be responsible. But I also think that because rights are central to the rule of law, and because rule of law is central to the flourish of the economy, we must try to strike a balance between all of the three. And this is what I do not see in the public space.
Okay, you said that, you've been chipping at this Cybercrime Act since 2014.
Yep.
And what 11 years down the line, and it looks like 11 years down the line, it looks like it's only you, or just you and a couple of others. Why is that the case?
I think we lost sight of the ball in 2015. People were more interested in regime change in 2014. The whole campaign against President Jonathan Goodluck. And of course, after the bill was passed in the National Assembly, there were voices, concerned about Section 24. But in periscoping Section 24, they used, a political lens. A lot of activists who were pro-APC at the time saw Section 24 as a weapon of tyranny that Jonathan had outlaid, to be used against the opposition. I can't recall any individual in 2014, 2015 who was hauled before the police on the basis of Section 24. But since 2015, we've had, all manners of Nigerians, from all walks of life, hauled before the police on the basis of Section 24 for spreading false messages in the public space. I ask myself, what is false in the context of the act itself? There are words in the act that are vague, that need judicial interpretation. As we go along, at some point, my hope is that the High Court of the country, particularly the Federal High Court, will take a look at the amended provisions of the Cybercrime Act and address it. Look, we need to put our house in order.
Yeah.
We need to use the law in in making our economy flourish, but because rights and freedoms are central, they are democratic tenets. You cannot have democracy without flourishing of freedoms and rights.
Okay, Abdul, I think we're just going to have to leave it like that. Many thanks for your time and useful insight. We've been looking at the Cyber Crime Act and how it can be tinkered with to make sure that freedoms and rights to express ourselves as Nigerians are enshrined.